So the next methodology used for increasing the throughput of the processor, it is known as multi-threading, which is coming under advanced micro architectures, right? So we all of us know that most of the real-time programs or the real application programs, the instruction parallelism may not be good, right? It may not be in a sufficient manner. So if you are adding more execution units to the superscalar architecture or to the out of order processor, the performance may not be increased to our expectation. When you are keep on adding the number of units in superscalar and out of order process, at a particular point of time, the performance will become stable. After that, you will not be able to increase the performance. So how can you increase the performance above that limit? For that, you can use this multi-threading technology. And we also know that most of the memory access will be slower when compared to the processor execution speed. So what does a memory do? Most of the loads and store will be accessing a smaller or faster memory known as cache. So when the memory is trying to access some data, the time taken for accessing memory will be more when compared to the processor. So how will the processor cope up with the data? The data will be taken from a more faster memory known as, or smaller and faster memory known as cache memory. So the data will be specifically accessed from the cache, not directly from the secondary storage generally, right? So if the instruction or the data are not available in the cache, what does the processor do? Processor will be directly accessing the data from the cache. We have already seen that. So if the data is not available there, what will the processor do? So processor should stall the pipeline for say around 10 or 100 or more cycles for accessing the data from the main memory. Because if data is not available in the cache, then it has to be accessed it from the actual main memory. So for accessing this data, it will take more than hundreds, or in some cases 10 or 20, in some other cases more than 100 cycles will be taken. That is known as pipeline stalling. That also we have seen before. So multi-threading is a technique which helps the processor to keep all the or most of the units busy, because in the superscalar processor and out of order processor we have seen that there are many functional units or execution units, and most of the units will be, or few of the units will not be utilized always. Whenever you are executing a thread or a process or a program, there are some of the functional units which are not at all utilized. So multi-threading is a technique which is used for increasing the utilization of those execution units, even if the instruction level parallelism is low or program is stalled for the memory access. Right. So multi-threading increases the performance of the processor. How it will increase the performance of the processor? By utilizing the actually or unutilized execution units, or utilizing the free execution units, even though the instruction level parallelism is low or the program is stalled for accessing the memory. Right. Normally, if the instruction level parallelism is of a good standard, normally all the units will be utilized fully. But here, since the instruction level parallelism is low, or the program or the processor is stalled due to waiting of memory access, in both the cases, multi-threading can improve the performance. How? It will try to utilize the units which are not occupied or free. Right. So that technique is known as multi-threading. So what do you mean by thread? What do you mean by thread? So before going to thread, what do you mean by, what you need to understand what do you mean by a process? Right. So a program running on a computer can be called as a process. Right. Thread is a part of a process, or process can be subdivided into several threads. So process is nothing but particular program running on your system, right? And your computers can run multiple processes simultaneously. For example, when you are playing a music on the PC, you can type something on the word, or you can surf the net, etc. So each of these are separate processes. Playing a movie or a video is one process, right? Surfing the web, it is another process. Typing something on the what is that, the word, that is another process. So these processes will be running simultaneously or almost in a simultaneous manner, right? And each of this process consists of one or more threads that also can run simultaneously. It is not actually simultaneously. We feel that it is something executed in a simultaneous manner because you are having only one processor. If you are having only one processor, only one process can be executed simultaneously. So since the scheduling is performed in such a manner that we feel that it is running simultaneously. So here one process consists of one or more threads which is running simultaneously. For example, if you are using a word, say Microsoft Word, it will be having one thread which is handling the typing of the keyboard or accessing the keyboard. There is one thread which is handling the keyboard. There is second thread which is handling the spell check, and sometimes there may be another thread which is handling the printing. Say for example, when you are typing the keyboard itself, you are trying to print something on the printer. So one thread will be handling the what is that, the typing on the keyboard. Second thread will be handling, say, spell check. Third thread may be handling printing of a document, right? So in this way, the programmer need not wait, say for example, to finish a document printing before typing it on the keyboard. Both are done almost in a parallel fashion or simultaneous fashion, right? If it was done separately, say if one thread should execute separately, another thread should execute separately, how it will be done? Printing has to be finished, then only you can type something on the keyboard. But here, in this case, all the threads are running almost simultaneous manner, so that we feel that all the things are running simultaneously. So we need not wait for one thread to complete for starting of another thread. So the degree to which a process can split into multiple threads, the degree to which a process can be splitted up into multiple threads that can be simultaneously executed, defines its level of thread level parallelism. It is a measure of splitting of process into various threads which can be running simultaneously on the system is known as level of thread level parallelism. So if the process can be splitted up into more threads which can be run almost simultaneously, we will tell that the level of parallelism or thread level parallelism is more. Previously, we have seen instruction level parallelism in the case of superscalar or out of order processor. Here, we are talking about thread level parallelism in the case of multi-threading architecture. So, in a case of a conventional processor, what will happen? Threads will be giving only the illusion of running simultaneously. That is what I told. In a conventional processor, right, there will be several threads, but we may feel that all the threads are running simultaneously, but it is not actually done like that. The threads actually take turns being executed on the processor under the control of the OS. So OS will schedule the thread in such a way that we get a feeling that the threads are running simultaneously. And when one thread is ending, what does the OS do? OS will save all its architectural state. It will save its architectural state and loads the architectural state of the next thread. What do you mean by architectural state? It consists of the program counter, the registers, etc. So when one thread is over, OS will save all its corresponding architectural state and it will load the architectural state of the next thread that is going to be executed, so that the next thread can start the execution. So this process is known as context switching. This we have already seen. So OS will save all the architectural state of the thread which is finished, and it will load the architectural state of the next thread so that it can be executed. That is known as context switching. So as long as the processor switches through all the threads faster enough so that the user get a feeling that all the threads are running in simultaneously or at the same time. So since the processor is able to switch between all the threads in a faster manner, we will get a feel that our program, all the threads are running in a simultaneous manner. But in a multi-threaded processor, whatever we have seen before was in the case of a conventional processor. But in the case of a multi-threaded processor, what is a speciality? It contains more than one copy of the architectural state. Right? It is having multiple copies of the architectural states so that more than one thread can be active at a time. Right? In a multi-threaded processor, it is dedicated for handling multiple threads. Each thread should have its own architectural state. So the multi-threaded processor will have different copies of architectural states. So each thread can use one particular architectural states. So if it is having 4 architectural states in the multi-threaded processor, 4 threads can be activated or 4 threads will be running parallelly simultaneously at a particular point of time, because it is having separate copy of architectural states state for each thread. So that is the speciality of multi-threaded processor. Say for example, if you are extending a processor which is with 4 program counters, 16 registers. If you are extending a normally a processor will be having one program counter, and in ARM it is having 16 registers. Instead of that, we are extending that processor with 4 program counters and 64 registers. What will happen? 4 threads can be running or 4 threads will be active at a time. So if the processor is having 4 separate program counters and 16 registers, this program counter and registers are part of architectural states. So since you are having 4 separate program counters and a set of 4 16 registers, that is why 64 registers in total, 4 threads can be activated simultaneously in that process. So what is the advantage of that? If one thread stalls while waiting for the data from the memory, if one thread is getting stalled, why? Because it is trying to get the data from the main memory, so it will get stalled for some time. Then the processor can perform the context switch so that another thread without any delay will get activated, because there are separate program counter and registers already available for the second thread. So if one thread is getting stalled due to accessing of main memory or whatever it is, the processor will perform the context switch and the next thread will get activated without any delay, and it can execute its task. Why? Because there is a separate program counter and registers allocated for that thread. If it was not there, then what it should do? It should store the previous architectural state, then it should load the new architectural state. But here it is not needed. Directly, since another set of program counter and registers are there, it can take it and execute the next thread. So if one thread lacks sufficient parallelism to keep all the execution units busy in a superscalar design, then another thread can issue instructions to the idle units. Right? If one thread lacks parallelism, what do you mean by lack parallelism? It was not able to efficiently use some of the execution units. That means some of the execution units will be free. So if one thread lacks sufficient parallelism, then another thread can take this execution units and issue the instructions. That is the speciality of multi-threading architecture. Right? If one thread was not able to have that much sufficient parallelism, another thread can take those execution units and execute some of the instructions from the next thread. So in collectively, multi-threading does not improve the performance of an individual thread. If you are having 4 threads, multi-threading cannot improve the performance of a particular thread because why? Because it does not increase the instruction level parallelism. If you want to increase the performance of a single thread, more instructions from that single thread has to be executed parallelly. But here that is not happening. More instruction from a single thread is not getting parallelized. So performance of that single thread is not getting improved. But in multi-threading, it improves the overall throughput of the processor because it cannot improve the performance of an individual thread, but overall throughput of the processor will be increased. How? Because multiple threads can use the processor resources which was idle when you are executing a single thread. Multiple threads can use the processor resources which was idle while you are executing a single thread. Once you are executing a single thread, some of the execution units were idle. That will reduce the performance of the processor or throughput of the processor. But in multi-threading, whenever some of the execution units are free or whenever some pipeline stalling is occurring, another thread can access these idle units and execute its own instructions. So that most of the execution units will be busy or most of the execution units will be used properly. So what will happen? It will improve the overall throughput of the processor or performance of the processor, but performance of individual thread may not be improved, but overall throughput of the processor will be improved. So multi-threading is also relatively inexpensive to implement because it replicates only the PC and register file, not the execution unit and the memory. So the multi-threading processor can be relatively inexpensive. We cannot tell it as absolutely inexpensive. It is relatively inexpensive because it will have different copies of PC register file, PC and register file generally, but it will be having only certain execution units and memory. Execution units and memory will not be replicated. Only the PC and register file will be replicated. So what does it mean? Each thread will be using the same execution units and memory, but the other process can be done with the help of PC and the register file because each thread will have its own registers and its own PC, but the execution units and memory will be shared between these threads. So let us have a comparison between the conventional and multi-threaded processor. So in the case of a conventional processor, how many threads will be running? Only single thread will be running. And since only single thread is there, lack of instruction level parallelism will be there, or the instruction level parallelism will be not up to the mark because few of the functional units or execution units will be free due to pipeline stalls, generally due to pipeline stall. So for example, you can see this. This is a conventional processor. And the conventional processor is having only one single thread. So only one PC and the architectural registers are only available. One PC and one set of architectural registers are available. And what it is shown here is the instruction stream. So what does it mean? What does it mean? These orange boxes shows that those execution units are executing some instructions, and white boxes shows that those are the functional units which are not utilized due to say pipeline stalls. Right. So when you are executing a single thread, you can see that most of the functional units shown in the figure, most of the functional units that is known as FU or most of the execution units, both are same execution units or functional units. Most of the execution units or functional units may be not utilized due to some kind of pipeline stalls or delayed branching, branch misprediction, etc. So that is in the case of a conventional processor. So the throughput of the conventional processor will be affected severely. But in the case of multi-threading processor, What will happen in the case of multi-threading? What does it mean? Thread level parallelism is being incorporated. Thread level parallelism is there. So what do you mean by thread level parallelism? There will be multiple threads which makes use of the underutilized functional units. Which makes use of the underutilized functional units. Since one thread was there in conventional processor, most of the functional units were free. But now, since we are having multi-threading concept, there will be various threads, and those threads can utilize the previous underutilized functional units. Right? So for a multi-threaded processor, multiple PC and register set will be available. Right? So let us take this is a multi-threaded processor. This multi-threaded processor is designed to handle 4 threads at a time or 4 hardware threads at a time. So since it can handle 4 hardware threads, it is having 4 separate PC and architectural register sets. So this PC and registers, architectural registers are for hardware thread 1. This PC and registers are used for hardware thread 2, and these two are PC and register architectural register set for hardware thread 3 and 4. So here 4 hardware threads can be handled by this multi-threaded processor. So what is the advantage? Almost all the functional units are busy or utilized. So in the first case, the orange shows that it is the first thread which is mapped on the first hardware thread. Right? So there are software threads which are written in the program. Till now we are dealing with the software thread because one program is a process. That process is divided into several software threads. So how will you execute these software threads on the multi-threaded processor? In a multi-threaded processor, several hardware threads will be there. Each hardware thread will be having PC and its associated architectural registers. And what does the processor do? Whatever threads, if you are having several threads, each software threads which I have written in the program, each software thread will be mapped onto one particular hardware thread. Right. So if I am having 4 software threads in my program, each of the software threads will be mapped onto each hardware threads. So in the diagram, what is happening? The orange box shows that the software which is mapped onto first hardware thread is utilizing this functional unit. Then it is trying to load some instruction. So some 2-3 cycles, 2-3 functional units are underutilized in the previous case. But since it is having other hardware threads, what will happen? This blue shows that the second software thread which is mapped on the second hardware thread will be executing this functional unit. Then the third software thread which is mapped on the third hardware thread will be executing this functional unit, will be executed in this unit. Then the fourth software thread will be executed on the fourth unit, like that. So each of the functional units will be utilized by one or the other hardware threads. That is why it is shown in different colors. So the number of functional units which are idle are very less. Here you can see that only 2 or 3 execution units are idle, which are not utilized by any of the hardware threads. But in the conventional processor, more functional units were free, which are idle. But here it is not like that way. So these multiple PCs and registers associated with each hardware thread is also known as thread context of the hardware thread. Right. So this PC and architectural registers are known as thread context of hardware thread 1. This PC and architectural register set is known as the thread context of hardware thread 2, like that. So all the other resources such as other than the PC and the registers of the CPU, all the other resources other than the PC and registers will be shared by all the software threads, because we have seen that there are execution units and the memory, etc. All those resources other than PC and registers will be shared by all the software threads according to which kind of multi-threaded processor you are using. There are several kinds of multi-threaded processor that we will see later. Right? Based on the processor implementation, all the other resources will be shared among all the software threads. Right? And if more software threads are there when compared to hardware threads, so for example, here you are having only 4 hardware threads, but let us take if you are having say 10 software threads in my program. I am having 10 software threads, but I am having only 4 hardware threads. How it will be getting executed? How it will get executed? Only a certain number of threads will be active at a particular point of time. How many threads will be active at a particular point of time? Only 4 threads. Why? Because only 4 hardware threads I am having in my multi-threaded processor. So even though I am having 100 threads, only 4 threads will be active at a given point of time. Why? Because in my multi-threaded processor, I am having only 4 hardware threads. So that is how multi-threaded processor is improving the throughput of the processor other than the conventional processor. So that is the difference between conventional and the multi-threaded processor. Then we'll go for the resource sharing in a multi-threaded processor. Resource sharing. So what are the resources? We have seen PC, registers, execution units, memory, etc. Those are the resources. Right? So we have divided these resources into certain categories. There are certain registers which are only replicated. That means in my multi-threaded processor, there are certain resources which are actually a copy of the other resources. You are having several copies of same set of resources. Then some of the resources are partitioned among the hardware threads, right? Some of the resources are partitioned among hardware threads, that is, it is distributed among hardware threads. There are some other resources which are shared among software threads. There are some other resources which are shared among software threads. So what are the resources which are replicated, or which replicated means different copies are there. So what are the resources which are replicated in a multi-threaded processor? These are the things. PC, that is program counter, architectural registers, and register renaming logic, etc. So let us take PC, architectural registers, and register renaming logic. These resources are replicated in a multi-threaded processor. That means each thread will be having these corresponding resources. Each thread will be having its own corresponding resources. So each thread means here I am concentrating on the hardware thread, not on the software thread. So that is what in the previous slide we have seen, that each software thread will be mapped onto a particular hardware thread. So if you are having 4 hardware threads in a multi-threaded processor, only 4 software threads can be executed at a time, right? So each software thread will be mapped onto corresponding hardware thread, and each hardware thread will be having a replica of program counter, architectural register, renaming logic, etc. Each hardware thread is having its own PC and registers, or a replica of PC and registers. So these are the resources which are replicated in each hardware threads. Similarly, there are certain resources which are partitioned in a hardware threads, among the hardware threads. What are they? Reorder buffer. This is used in the case of out of order processor. Reorder buffer. Then load store buffer. Buffers used for loading and storing operation. Then queues such as fetch queue and issue queue. Because how the instructions are given into the pipeline, there will be a separate queue known as fetch queue, and there will be another queue known as issue queue. Fetch queue will be holding the instruction which are to be fetched. Issue queue will be holding the instruction that are to be issued or activated. So these reorder buffer, load store buffer, fetch queue, issue queue, etc. These are partitioned or divided among various hardware threads. It is not replicated, they are divided. So one reorder buffer will be given to first hardware thread. Then if it is to say multiple reorder buffer, the next one will be given to next hardware thread, like that. It is not replicated, it is partitioned. That means the number of reorder buffer or load store buffer will not be same as the hardware threads. It may be even lesser also. So how many ever resources are there, that will be partitioned among the hardware threads. Then there are certain other resources which are shared among the software threads. So which are those resources which are shared among software threads? That is what we have seen before. The caches, physical registers and execution units. Cache, physical registers and the execution units, they are shared among the software registers. Right, because execution unit, we don't have separate units, it will be shared. So what do you mean by physical register and architectural registers? Architectural registers are, in the case of ARM, you are having 16 general purpose registers. That is known as architectural registers. Physical register means, say, let us take, you are having a register associated with the GPIO peripheral, say pin cell or IO set. So those are the physical registers which can be shared by different software threads. But architectural registers are replicated. Each hardware thread will be having its own architectural registers. But the physical registers can be shared by the software threads. Right? And how the caches are getting shared, why it is getting shared? In the case of a cache, how the sharing is done? Thread is a part of a process, because generally you are having a program known as a process. It will be having several threads, and each threads may need to share some data for its operation. Each thread may need to share some data for executing some process. That is why caches are shared between the software threads. One software thread may be writing to a cache, another software thread may need to read from the cache, etc. So that is why cache is shared among the software threads. Similarly, execution units are also shared among software threads. How can you understand that? Say for example, there is one thread which is handling integer operation. There is another thread which is handling, say, floating point operation. So normally in a conventional processor, if you are designing, what will be happening? There will be one execution unit for integer operation, and let us take there is another execution unit for floating point operation. Right, let us take, I have designed a processor like that. One separate floating point execution unit, another separate integer execution unit. But what is the problem related with that? When I am executing an instruction related to a thread which is operating on integer execution unit, that integer execution unit will be fully utilized. But at that time, floating point execution unit will be sitting idle. And similarly, in another thread, sometimes I will be using floating point operation. So I will utilize the floating point execution unit. But at that time, the integer execution unit may be idle. So this will drastically reduce the throughput of the processor or performance of the processor. So in order to avoid this underutilization of the execution units in the multi-threaded processor, execution units are shared between various software threads. So these are the categorization of various resources and its sharing methodology in multi-threaded processor. What are the characteristics of a multi-threaded implementation? So there are two main characteristics for multi-threaded implementation. That means based on these characteristics only the various multi-threaded processes are designed. So first characteristic is known as thread scheduling policy. So what do you mean by that? From the name itself, we will get some idea. From the name itself, you will get the idea how the threads are scheduled in the processor. That is one of the key characteristic. So whether one thread or more thread has to be mapped onto the hardware threads at different cycles. That is decided. That is a characteristic known as thread scheduling policy. So in a particular multi-threaded processor, either one thread or more thread will be mapped onto hardware threads at different cycles. At different cycle is very important because always only one software thread can be mapped onto one hardware thread at a particular point of time. But based on the thread scheduling policy, say at this point of time, one thread will be mapped onto hardware thread. In the next cycle, another thread will be mapped onto one hardware thread like that. So how are one or more threads mapped onto the corresponding hardware threads in different cycles is decided by the thread scheduling policy. Second characteristic is known as pipeline partitioning. So what do you mean by pipeline partitioning? Pipeline partitioning means whether pipeline has to be partitioned among multiple threads or not. Whether the pipeline has to be partitioned among multiple threads. What does it mean? Whether a single pipeline we can accommodate instructions from multiple threads in different stages, or whether it can accommodate only instructions from a single thread. That is known as pipeline partition. Let us take this is your pipeline. Whether the pipeline can hold instructions from a single thread throughout the pipeline, or whether the pipeline is partitioned among multiple threads. That means each stage may be having, or each set of instructions may be from various different threads or multiple threads. So that is decided by the pipeline partitioning. So whether the threads, the pipeline has to be partitioned among multiple threads or not. That is decided by pipeline partitioning. Whether one or more threads has to be handled by the hardware threads, that is decided by the thread scheduling policy. These are the two characteristics of multi-threaded implementation. And there are three different types of multi-threaded implementation available. One is known as coarse-grained multi-threading, that is CGMT. Another one is fine-grained multi-threading, that is FGMT. Last one is simultaneous multi-threading, SMT. So what do you mean by coarse-grained multi-threading? Again, we told that basically two characteristics are there deciding on the implementation. One is a thread scheduling policy, another one is pipeline partitioning. So what is the thread scheduling policy associated with the coarse grain? Here, the switching of the threads will only take place on long latency events. The threads will be switched, right? Let us take you are having thread A and thread B. Thread A will be switched to thread B only when there is a say L2 cache miss. When it is trying to access some data from L1 cache, it is not getting. So it will try to take the data from L2 cache. That also is failing. So it should take from somewhere else, say from the main memory, right? So in those situations, thread A will be switched by thread B. And when the operation is over, when the miss is returning, thread A will return from thread B. From the figure itself, we can see that this orange color shows that first thread is getting executed in these execution units. So this figure shows a processor, a multi-threaded processor, which can take 4 parallel instructions, parallel threads at a time. 4 set of execution units are there. So it is a 4-way multi-threaded architecture. 4 instructions can be 4 threads or 4 instructions can be taken in each cycle. And this orange color shows that these execution units are taken by the thread A. And at this point of time, after this cycle, some L2 cache miss or long latency events are occurring. So the thread A has been switched to thread B. So B was executing here in these cycles. That means all the parallel instructions are executed from the same thread itself, that is thread A. Here also all the parallel instructions are taken from same thread itself. And here also some kind of long latency events are occurring. So it is getting switched over to thread C like that. Right. So whenever there is a long latency event, that means whenever a thread need to wait for longer amount of time in order to access something, switching of the threads will take place. And here you can see that there are many execution units which are idle. So the throughput of coarse grain multi-threading will be lesser. Then what about pipeline partitioning? Here the pipeline is not partitioned among the threads, because you can see that in this pipeline these instructions are taken from one thread. These instructions are taken from second thread like that. So pipeline is not partitioned among the threads. All the stages will be having the instructions belonging to its own thread. And whenever switching is taking place, pipeline will be flushed, because whenever thread A is switched to thread B, the whole pipeline will be the pipeline will be flushed, and a new pipeline will be loaded. New pipeline for the next thread will be loaded. So pipeline partitioning is not there, but pipeline will be flushed on thread switching. Then here you can see that the single thread performance will be affected only very little. Right, single thread performance will be affected only very little, because all the instructions in this cycle are from one thread. These instructions are from another thread. So the performance of a single thread may not be affected too much. So that is why it is written sacrifices very little single thread performance. Single thread performance may not be affected too much in the case of coarse grain. Right, single thread means one thread, but it cannot tolerate latency shorter than twice the pipeline lengths. If the pipeline is of say 4 stages, it cannot tolerate latencies shorter than 8 pipeline depth, 8 stages. This coarse grain multi-threaded processor can only be used in the case of in-order pipeline for getting good performance. What does it mean? It is not suitable for out-of-order processor architecture. So the coarse grain multi-threading is not suitable for out-of-order processor architecture. This can only be implemented in an in-order pipeline architecture or pipeline processor. Right. So out of order processor execution cannot be performed on this coarse grain multi-threading. Right, because all the instructions in say let us take in this cycle are taken from one thread. Similarly, all the instructions here are taken from one thread. It cannot have a mix of different threads. So it is not suitable, and it will be in the order will be same itself. The order of the instructions executed in a single thread will be same. So it cannot be implemented on an out of order processor. Example, IBM North Star, Pulsar, etc. That is coarse grain multi-threading implementation. Next one is fine grained multi-threading implementation. Why you have moved from coarse to fine grain? In order to increase the throughput or performance of the processor. In order to improve the performance of the processor. So again in fine grained also, these two characteristics are there: thread scheduling policy and pipeline partitioning. So in the what is meant by the thread scheduling policy in fine grained? The threads will be switched on every cycle in a round robin manner, even though the L2 cache miss is there or not. So even though there is cache miss or not, each cycle threads will be switched. So you can see that in one cycle, the orange color shows that it is executing one thread. In the next cycle, blue color shows that it is second thread. In next cycle, this color shows that it is third thread, fourth thread. So 4 threads are there. Again, the same order it will be executed. So that is why in the case of fine-grained multi-threading, each cycle switching of the threads will be taken place in round robin manner, because the execution is done in a round robin. First thread, second thread, third thread, fourth thread. Again first thread, second thread, third thread, fourth thread, etc. So that is a thread scheduling policy. Then what about pipeline partitioning? Pipeline will be partitioned among the threads dynamically. That is why in each cycle we can see that various threads are there. So the pipeline itself will be partitioned among various threads. Pipeline will contain instructions of various threads, and flushing will not happen here. Flushing will not happen here. So one instruction will be taken from a particular set of instruction will be taken from one thread, and in the next thread, if it is not, if some latency or something is happening, or if it is not there also, the second thread will be executed. Right. So here pipeline flushing will not happen on L1 miss or L2 miss, etc. Pipeline flushing will not take place, and the partitioning of the pipeline will be decided dynamically by the fine-grained multi-threaded processor. Then it can tolerate all the latencies. What do you mean by tolerating all the latencies? Whenever there is a L2 miss or a mispredicted branch, or whenever there is such problems, the threads will be switched. But in the coarse-grained architecture, when there is a long latency event, then only thread switching will happen. But here, irrespective of whether it is a long latency or short latency event, switching will happen. Whenever there is a latency problem, or whenever if it is trying to get something, and if it is not able to get that, it will switch the thread. So it can tolerate all the latencies, means even though it is a short latency or long latency, it can switch the threads. Then the length of the pipeline does not matter. In the previous coarse grained architecture, it was told that it cannot tolerate the stages which is having more than or shorter than twice the pipeline stages. But here the length of pipeline doesn't matter. For fine-grained multi-threading architecture to work properly according to our design, more threads are required. More threads are required, because in each cycle thread switching is happening. So if the number of threads are lesser, the processor throughput may be lesser, because more idle units will be there. There may not be threads sufficiently enough in order to make the execution units working or busy. So if the number of threads are lesser, there will be more execution units which are free, so the throughput may be affected. So fine-grained multi-threading, more threads are required. Example is this one. Then what are the disadvantages of fine-grained? It is having very poor single thread performance. Single thread performance will be affected drastically. Why? Because you can see that, let us take this orange color as a single thread. So 3 instructions of a single thread are executed here, for example, and then remaining instructions are executed only after 3 cycles. So what are the advantages? Single thread performance will be affected, because in the some little portion of the thread, or most of the instructions are executed from thread 1 here, then the remaining instructions will be executed from the same thread only in the 5th cycle. So single thread performance is affected. Then commercially it was a failure, fine grained. And nowadays it is not available. And one more important disadvantage is that this will be applicable only when lot of threads are there. So whenever number of threads are increasing, more register files are required. Whenever more register files are increasing, the complexity of the processor, power consumed by the processor keep on increasing. So we cannot have more number of threads. That is one of the important disadvantage. When more number of threads, many register files are required. Then the third type of multi-threading implementation is known as simultaneous multi-threading implementation. Simultaneous multi-threading implementation. So it is nothing but it is a combination of fine-grained multi-threading and superscalar. It is a combination of fine-grained multi-threading and superscalar. So here also two key characteristics are there. Thread scheduling policy. What is a thread scheduling policy used here? Round robin itself, which is almost similar to fine-grained multi-threading architecture, round robin. But what is the advantage here? In the case of fine-grained multi-threading architecture, each cycle was having only one type of thread. In cycle 1, it will be having one thread. Cycle 2, it will be having second thread, like that. But here you can see that in each cycle, multiple instructions from multiple threads will be executed. Right. So in each cycle, instructions from multiple threads can be executed. That means pipeline will be having separate instructions from separate threads in the same cycle itself. So what is the advantage of that? Again, the number of idle units can be reduced. In the previous fine grained, you can see that these white boxes shows the units which are idle, because only one thread is getting executed in one cycle. So here, if you are able to take the instruction from the second thread, this unit also will be busy. But here in fine grained, it was not possible. But in simultaneous multi-threading, you can see that in single cycle, instructions from different threads can be accommodated. So that number of execution units, number of idle execution units can be reduced. So the throughput will be increased. So here, what about pipeline partitioning? Again, dynamic pipeline partitioning. Pipeline consists of instructions from various threads, and pipeline flushing need not happen here. Right? Because whenever there is a latency, even though it is a short latency or long latency, the instructions from another thread can be executed. That is why flushing is not required and dynamic pipeline partition is done. So it again, as same as the fine grained, it tolerates all the latencies. Even though it is short latency or long latency, all the latency, whenever there is a latency, whenever if it is trying to get some data and if it is not available, then next thread which is free to execute on the execution unit can get executed. So this will improve the throughput as the number of execution units which are idle are reduced. So it will improve the throughput. Example, Pentium 4. It is having, I think, 5-way architecture. 5-way architecture, I think. Then in the case of resource partitioning also, it can perform both static and dynamic resource partitioning based on the implementation. It can have static and dynamic. That means certain resources will be statically allocated to a thread. Certain resources will be dynamically associated based on the execution of each thread. So that is about the resource partitioning. Then here also single thread performance will be slightly affected. But in fine-grained architecture, since in each cycle only one thread was executed, single thread performance will be drastically affected. But in the case of simultaneous multi-threading, since we are merging the advantages of superscalar and fine-grained multi-threading. Superscalar means what? There will be separate set of pipeline which can handle, so that we can handle more instructions simultaneously. So if you are having a two-way superscalar architecture, two instructions can be executed simultaneously. So if you are having four-way superscalar architecture, four instructions can be executed simultaneously. And here, since it is multi-threading, all the four instructions can be from different threads. That is shown here. All the instructions can be from different threads since it is having multi-threading. So all the instructions can be from multiple threads. Single thread performance may not be affected that much because it will be executed almost in the nearby cycles when compared to the other one. Then what is the disadvantage of simultaneous multi-threading? It will increase the conflict of shared resources. Because here I told resource partitioning as well as sharing of the resources will be done statically or dynamically, so that there can increase the conflict of shared resources at some point of time. So these are the three various multi-threading implementation. So when you are comparing the performance improvement of all the four architectures, you can see like this. So first one shows the superscalar architecture where multiple units are idle, multiple execution units are idle. So the throughput is lesser, even though four or more instructions are executed parallelly or simultaneously, the throughput is lesser. But in the case of coarse grain multi-threading, when compared to superscalar architecture, throughput is slightly increased because the number of idle units are reduced. As for a certain set of cycle, one thread will be executed. Next set of cycle, second thread will be executed. So in the previous state, in the second, these two cycles, it was idle. So in this part, the second thread can be executed. So the performance is slightly increased. But in the case of fine-grained multi-threading, again the performance is little more increased because there is a reduction in the number of idle units when compared to these two. So here in each cycle, one particular thread will be executed, even though it is a short latency event or long latency event. But in the case of coarse grain, if it is long latency event, then only thread switching will take place. But here in each cycle, thread switching will take place. So the performance is little more increased. And in simultaneous multi-threading architecture, you can see in this case only 4 execution units are idle. But in superscalar architecture, more than 15 execution units are idle. But here only 4 execution units are idle. So the throughput has been improved very much in the case of simultaneous multi-threading architecture. How it was improved? By incorporating the feature of superscalar architecture. That means multiple instruction can be taken through the pipeline parallelly, and each instructions can be from various threads. Each instructions can be from various threads. So the number of idle execution units have been reduced and the throughput has been increased drastically. Right? So these are the comparison between the performance of each processor implementation.